Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
On to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and as you know, I love Kickstarters, and have I got an absolute treat for you guys. Not just one, not just two, but I have three guest stars to talk about their latest Kickstarter. We'll have a look at the video, let's get involved, let's bring them on board. First off is the incomparable. It's Mr. Tony Bedard. Tony.
Hi there.
How's it going? Excellent. And of course, no comic book would be the same without the dulcet pencil lines of one Mr. Scott McDaniel.
Hi there.
How are you doing? And it takes a special kind of CEO, a special type of comic book business owner to bring these two greats together. So here we go. It's Mr. Tom Fenoglio. How's it going?
Not too bad. Thanks, Johnny. Hey, Tony. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Tom.
Excellent. So, gents, talk to me about your book. You've got Fenom Comics have got another fantastic book coming out. It's on Kickstarter. It's doing really well. We're going to take a video. We're going to look at the video in a little bit. Where should we go first? Tony, tell us what's the story? What's the riff on this?
Actually, I'll go back to getting a call from my old friend Rob Hunter, who I used to work with back at CrossGen Comics, going back to the early 2000s. And he, I think, was one of the first people who got in touch with Tom, Tom and his brother had a whole stable of stories and characters that they wanted to bring to comics. And but they were looking for people who had some experience in creating these to team up with and get them out on the shelves. And so he put me in touch with Tom. Tom sent me a couple of different story synopses of things that they had come up with, properties that they thought would really work well. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is that there were two that really caught my eye. One of them was like a surefire, just you could tell was going to have an audience, was going to sell. It was just a natural. And then there was another one that was a little bit more quirky and kind of self-contained. It was kind of this space race story with this family at the heart of it. And that's the one that actually got me. It did not look like the natural one to lead with, but it just kind of caught my imagination, and I could see how to expand this thing and really just go places with it that you wouldn't expect. And that's what wound up becoming Star Riders, the book that Scott and I have been working on, and has become sort of a labor of love for us. And and the weird thing too is that this happened. The timing of it was just before the pandemic came along and kind of just threw everybody's plans up in the air. But we had kind of a strange benefit out of that, because it gave us more time to sort of go back and start really polishing things, expanding places. This thing became more than any of us, I think, ever dreamed it would be. And of course, I had worked with Scott before, first as an editor at DC Comics, and then we collaborated on several things. We did a book called The Great 10. It was a bunch of Chinese superheroes that Grant Morrison had come up with for DC Comics, and that thing turned out wonderful. I'm so happy with it. One of the best moments of my career was Grant actually pulling me aside at a Comic-Con and spending about 15 minutes telling me how that book was way better than it had any right to be. I mean, Grant's like one of my all-time heroes in comics. So, it's just nice to be working together with Scott and be with this whole group.
Well, you say all-time heroes. Before we started the show, Scott was the early bird. And I have to say, I absolutely totally fanboyed out, because Scott is one of my favorite artists of a certain era of DC Comics. So, Scott, when I see your name attached to something, I'm expecting, I don't know, acrobats, big cars, Gothic architecture,
Yeah.
This is sci-fi, man. This is like, when I think of artists, this seems a little bit outside your ballpark. So how do you feel sort of swapping cityscapes for outer space?
Yeah. You are very perceptive, my friend. I felt really blessed to be into comics and to land on a title like Nightwing because, as we talked earlier, I have a very unique stylized view of reality, right? And so an artist's style is their interpretation of reality, and you like to have a nice consistent view on how you take things in, so your world is kind of unified. And being on Nightwing, it really just tapped into I think what my aesthetics naturally are. I have a youthful over exaggerated kind of style, something cartoony. I just think it's a little more exaggerated, stylized, but it's very athletic. I love the kinetic energy that was in Nightwing. I love architecture, so to do all the perspective and the curvilinear perspective, that was just huge fun. And Chuck Dixon gave me a lot of room to choreograph a lot of those travel scenes where the figure is strobing between.
Those are my favorites. I love those.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's so much fun. I think a lot of people think that the artist enjoys just the technical aspect of rendering, but actually for me, my most favorite part of the job is to either design a page and design the layout of the page so that the eye flow is very unique and controlled and energetic. And then to do these choreographed scenes, whether they're fight scenes or these acrobatic scenes, to do all that choreography it's like solving math, and I love math. So I just love that.
So Stylizers isn't that at all. So
that's part of the appeal. When the glue that got me into this project was Rob Hunter. I'd worked with Rob on some projects, most notably Batman and Robin for DC Comics. We did a short story arc there, and I really loved his style. You do? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He has a real just a gift with line work and texture. And I just love the way he can bring boldness but also detail onto my artwork, and I just think it brings it up a whole nother dimension. So it was an opportunity. I guess he was working with Tom, putting this thing together, and he recommended me and for this project. And as I was starting to learn more about it, you're right. It was actually very far outside of my wheelhouse, and we can get into that maybe a little bit later on in detail. But it did tap into some other things that were a part of me that I really enjoyed.
Cool.
Before I got into comics, I was an electrical engineer, so I love math, I love science. And in fact, if I didn't wear glasses, my whole life might have been very different, because as I was graduating from high school, I went down to the Air Force recruiter to see if I could actually fly fighter planes.
Scott Maverick McDaniel.
That's it. Yeah, Pop Gun McDaniel.
That's a nickname that's got to stick.
I went to Georgia Tech because I wanted to be an astronaut. That was my
my
ambition in life. I realize now I would have been the world's worst astronaut, and I probably would have thrown up in my helmet or something. Really, I just wanted to tell stories about astronauts in space.
There you go. You remember those little gum things, the Bazooka Joe, where it had like the little cartoon in there and it had the little message for you. Well, Bazooka Joe told me I would be the first man to walk on Mars. So I was a little disappointed, but now that Elon Musk is pursuing that, I have my chance.
I was in an interview a few years back, and you get asked these tough questions. And the last one was, if you could have any job that you wanted in the world, what job would you want? And I'd just watched the Super Bowl, and I'd said, oh well, starting quarterback for the New England Patriots team have a good game last night, so I think I'd do him, please. And he looked at me and went, "You're not taking this question very seriously." I was like, "No kidding." I hate Tom Brady as well. Anyway, Tom, get involved. You at Fenom Comics, you've created like a pool of talent. Last time we spoke, Chuck Dixon was on the show talking about the Hunter Bear Ninja. And now you've got Tony, who's been, I don't want to say this in a rude sort of way, he's been around the block. He's done a fair few books, man. And I've got Scott, who's synonymous with certain characters. So how is it you've drawn in this fantastic talent?
Well, I think Tony and Scott mentioned, Rob Hunter was the first person that Joe and I really sat down with.
So it's all his fault.
Yeah, well, because Joe and I really didn't understand the comic realm and how to write comics. We had stories, but we didn't know how to put it into the structure for the artist. And so Rob said, "Hey, you talk about two great writers. We got Tony Bedard, we got Chuck Dixon." And so with Tony, it was fascinating because it's kind of fun. I'm sitting here listening to these guys because we always talk on the phone, but it's the first time we've ever had a video chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. And Johnny, I do want to say thank you for having us. This is very nice.
Welcome.
Yeah,
thank you for giving me the opportunity.
This is great. Well, appreciate it. And I think that once we got all on the phone together, just us three, and we started just talking about the story. And Tony said that he wanted to jump on the Star Writers. Scott's an electrical engineer. My brother's a mechanical. I'm an electrical. So I think everything really kind of meshed that Joe and I were able to learn from Tony, because here Tony's bringing in an assortment of just ideas and ways to take the story. And then we got Scott here saying, wait a second, to really structure that the right way, I think it should look like this. So we had all these forces, and we've never had one argument. We've never had one blowout. It's always been so collaborative that it's been nice. So everyone's been just very creative, very respectful. But I think we've all sort of tuned into what was the right call. So sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. But Star Writers really, I think the readers are going to love it because they're taking advantage of just years of wisdom between Tony and Scott and Rob. We got the colors, we got the letters, we got everybody. And I'm saying just collectively, we've got, good luck finding a story nowadays with this much talent. You're not.
Absolutely agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Yeah, I'd have to say too, let me just add on to that.
Go for it.
It's not just a product of expertise, let's say. I think it's a product of expertise driven by passion.
Good call.
I think Tony and I, we love comics, we love stories. We work together, and that's why we got into this business. And you don't last in this business if you don't have that kind of passion. And we sense that exact same passion with Tom. When we started talking about story and characters, you could tell that this is a story that has lived in this man's mind and his heart and his soul for just years, and it was bursting to get out. And so we were just trying to shepherd all this energy and drive it into a product that is really sharply defined and well executed. And I think we've done that. It's a great read, and it's a great looking product.
Yeah.
I have to say it looks great. Should we have a look at the video whilst we're waxing lyrical, just to get this stall started up for us? So here we go. This is the video of the Kickstarter. Let's have a max that out so we can all see it. And we're all on there. Fantastic. Here we go.
One, two, three, four, five, five, four, three, two, one, two, Mike, Nick, hold tight. Roger that, Dad. All systems go. Tell him I won't be home for dinner. Godspeed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, lift off and the clock has started. Yes, sir. Reading it loud and clear.
Houston, we've had a problem. This is Houston. Say again, please. Hey, Houston, we've had a problem here. Are you seeing this, Houston? Roger. There's coming in. Stand course. For God's sake, this can't be real. Dad, do we have any options? Boys, fly safe.
That's one small step for man,
Wow. Wow, that's all I'm going to say to that. That's absolutely wow. It's like, it's the second time I've watched this today, and I'm writing notes as I'm talking. The thing, the overlay, the voiceovers, man, Scream $6 million, man. Did you remember the old TV show where he's like, right there, and then before he blows up? I'm like, whoa.
Well, it's trickier because I think we were all in agreement. Well, I shouldn't say we all were in agreement that we do want to promo this, but we don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
And so it's really tricky to promote a film without promoting a film or, promote a book. So I think that story was a good little synopsis of the first portion of the story, but it really it doesn't do the story justice. It's fun to watch, and I think it really turned out well. But if you like that, you're going to love the story because the story's 50 times that. But we just try to give a little eye candy, a cool little, synopsis of it. But really, it's just the beginning of the story. It's got nothing to do with the back end.
It was something when I first saw Tom's original synopsis, breakdown of what was going to happen. It goes places, basically it goes to the end of where you think anything could happen, and then things really get interesting beyond that point. So part of what attracted me to it was the audacity of this story. It's truly cosmic. As you saw in some of the images there are aliens and other beings that basically there's a space race that has parallels in what's happening today. You see all these independent as well as nation-led space programs, and so we have something like that going on, and it gets to a point that it attracts the attention of things that we had best not attract the attention of, and then things go really crazy. But the thing that also hooked me about it was that at the core of it and throughout that, there's this family story. There's a bond between these central characters that really drives it. That made it feel like it had heart, and that kept you caring about what happened to the characters in it, even when things are just beyond cosmic. It still is grounded, and that's what kind of makes the story work.
Dare I say, a serious Lost in Space type thing.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the original pilot episode of Lost in Space, and it was super dark.
Right?
Not because it was a black and white TV show, but it was super dark. And then second season it turns into space carrots, and you're like, what? Where did the serious stuff go?
I like the Space Carrots version of it too, though. But I know what you're talking about. It really changed tone.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, as an artist, that was what I enjoyed most about it as well. Just as Tony said, it's got it has the epic scale, and you really like all of that, right? The pushing the envelope on the imagination, but at its core, it's about people. It's about relationships, because without that core, the rest of the stuff it just reads as shallow. It'll wash over you. It's like, well, why should I even bother caring? What does this mean for our life? And I think because of the characters that are in play here and the dynamics between them, it really does bring a lot of meaning to the story. And as a storyteller, to do the artwork, I would say is probably the most labor intensive aspect of any given project. The writing is definitely, you're starting from a blank canvas, but the penciler takes that and creates the first set of images from that. It takes a long time. So you're investing a huge portion of your life into this material, and the material has to be deep enough to justify that. And I think this material definitely hits that mark.
Cool. Tom, I need to ask you a question, because these are your synopsis, or synopsize, whatever the plural of synopsis is. These are your ideas, you and your brothers. How nervous are you? I mean, Chuck Dixon, comic book legend, Tony, comic book legend, Scott, comic book legend, but still, I don't like anybody looking at my reviews, never mind handing over a piece of it. You know what I'm saying? How does it feel to sort of hand over something that's so precious to you, and then you kind of just hope that, it turns out as fantastic as it does?
No, first of all, I'm not being abducted by aliens. It's the morning sunlight.
I feel
like
it looks like a starlight on the horizon, guys.
Yes, I'm being ascended. But no, I guess we don't think that way. I guess Joe and I guess you have to understand that we see everything's almost like a moving timeline, and our time's running out. You know, where
All right, okay.
yeah, where we've done this, we've sort of kept these stories, and now we're rolling them out. It was a good time to do it, and yeah, it makes you feel good when you've got professionals across the board. Trust me, there's nothing better than having a Tony Bedard saying, "Hey, I really like this one." That's music to our ears. Versus getting shot down and then you're rejected. So without a doubt, but maybe we were naive, but I guess we never even thought of that. We were looking at, can you teach us something? We do not know how to write. We don't know how to put this into a comic realm. We don't know, Scott, we don't know how to bring this to life. We don't know a lot of things. So I think that's what I think Tony and all the, Chuck and Scott and you got, Mel on the other side. I think everyone almost appreciated that because we weren't the editorial board. We weren't management. We weren't, hey, we want this done tomorrow and we want it this way. And we have to appease this, appease that. We just said, tell the story. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts. What do we want to do? And I think maybe I'm not answering the question, but there was really never any fear. It was almost, hey guys, can you help us? Well, and I think just being the people that they are, I think they understood that, hey, these guys want to tell a story, and that's why we're in this, to tell a story. So it was a perfect mesh.
Well, don't think that don't get the idea that Tom and Joe took this thing and just handed it off to Tony and I, and we ran with it for months, and then came back and said, "Here you go." Yeah. Tom was an integral part of this process all the way through. I kind of liken him as maybe we have two quarterbacks on the book. I think the writer is generally a story driver, a main story driver, but so is Tom and his brother Joe. Tom was the face of it, but he and Joe, obviously, this is something they had shared, but Tom was involved every step of the way, and just sharing his ideas and helping us really know if we're on target with where we're going. With his vision, because the idea was to bring this to life and satisfy that vision, fulfill that vision. Mm-hmm. And I think so together, Tom talked about a collaboration, and I think this was a very healthy and really creatively satisfying collaboration. And I think it really got the best out of all of us.
Cool.
Yeah, if I could just add a little something.
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
That I met Rob at CrossGen Comics, and working at CrossGen was a real watershed moment for me. I had been working in comics ever since the early 90s. I think I started at Valiant and worked at DC for a little while. So I had seen how a lot of different companies do it. But at CrossGen, it was different because we were all in the same place, and normally, in comics, you get used to just doing things remotely from your various, home studios. Being under the same roof meant that as a writer, I could sit down at lunch with the penciler, the inker, the colorist, and pitch them the next issue we were going to do, and just kind of watch their faces as I went through the beats of the story. And you could tell when they were into it or when it was something that they did not like. And I learned to take that, if the penciler's not into whatever I'm talking about drawing, find something else for them to draw.
No helicopters.
Fully invested. But more than that, if the colorist has a cool idea for a line or a joke or something, use it, because when everybody is invested, you get something that's greater than the sum of its parts. And I could tell from the start working with Tom that was the kind of situation that he was looking for. When you first get into comics and you want to make a personal statement, you kind of want to own the story or something somehow, and you come to realize that it's a lot better if everybody owns the story. And so that's kind of the wonderful thing that we've got at Fenom. I really feel like everybody has a sense of ownership and has their chance to give whatever they have to give.
Cool. And it's interesting when you say how collaborative. We all assume that comics are automatically collaborative because there's so many moving parts. But the fact is, Tom, you have a story. Tony, you need to take that and write it. Scott, you write the artist as well, so you have your, so you've got like your two sides of brain, writer artist brain going on. It's so refreshing to hear people just kind of come together and actually work as a collaborative on the same sort of goal. There's no sort of agenda. It's like, this is a story. Yeah, I can help. Yeah, I want to do this, and then put all the bits together. It's absolutely fantastic.
And then even the, really, I think the unsung side of this whole story is, I think when you're doing, let's say a Robin, let's say you're doing Batman, let's say Spider-Man, everybody knows the characters. You know, everybody knows the town, everybody knows Metropolis, everybody knows Gotham. So everybody, they might make a change of it. They might have their own personal interpretation, but at the end, you don't have to really describe too much. Hey, Batman beats Joker over the head. Okay, done. Well, here
I've seen that episode.
But here we didn't know, and this lighting's driving me nuts, by the way. But Scott really had to create everything. Like I think Scott and I spent a lot of time making sure that the quantum physics was correct. The our Orbots, they're called Orbots, were right. The setting, the time frame, and then we go back to Tony and say, Tony, does this mesh with your story? And then Tony would go, well, I think we should then build up a couple pages here to build up the characters if we're going to go that route. But there was a lot of when Tony's writing, Scott was really creating models. He was really creating the whole, you know, very Star Wars. No one saw Star Wars for the first time. Well, no one saw this. So everything about this book is original, and I think I think that was one of the hardest parts. That was really the hardest part, is creating everything, creating their shirts, creating their sneakers, creating the cars, creating everything. There's nothing that we could pull from, that we could reference.
And not just one set of everything. There were multiple sets of designs for these characters, for the different applications, the different, well, I'm not going to say too much, but it's not just one set. You have to design maybe 2, maybe 3 different sets for one given character, one given environment.
You know, nobody hits a home run straight off.
Oh no, but they're all featured. That's the thing.
Yeah, this thing happens on several levels. It's,
there's multiple levels, so it's like Tom said, everything had to be designed. Every character, every location, whether it's a home or an office or a launch facility or a vehicle, everything had to be designed from scratch. And I'll share a little bit of that in a bit.
Yeah,
cool. Excellent.
And then also, I think it's a touching story, because I think this is a conversation Tony and I had, was if you look deep into the story, it's especially with just life in general, where always judge a book not by the cover, by what's inside. And I think this really goes to humanity and what makes humans, individuals, but what makes them, humans, I guess. And a lot of stories say that, but we really did try to create something that no one's ever seen. And I think it is a very good tale on what makes a human human. And so there's a lot of sci-fi to it, but at the end, it is a very human story. It's a very,
Excellent.
I'm not sure if I explained that right. That's
no, I get it. It's science fiction. Science fiction, but there's a human element that talks about the human condition and what makes us who we are, not just what we are, and the things that helps us with the decisions we make on the daily. How's that sound? I should work in PR. Is there a job going somewhere that I can get on? I don't know. Whilst we discuss the book some more, time for a short break, a very short break, for one of our favourite shows. New show coming up this week. It'll be a Mother's Day special. I know it's late, but the old timers, man, they're a little bit addled in the brain. Anyway, it's the Old Timers Comic Book Show. Check it out.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
That's right, the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. So if you want to see some certain books from certain creators, you might check that out somewhere down the line. All right, excellent. Back to Star Riders. I've got some art primed ready to go. Are we okay to show this?
Yeah.
Boom. There we go. Check that out. This is such a technical page. I absolutely love how the pacing works. And, the colours. It's what I liked about Hunters as well. The colours have absolutely been fantastic. I think, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I think over the last 20, 25 years, the biggest improvement in comic books has been digital colors. Cool. So,
and let me just share on this page here. Part of the fun of designing, say, this page is to figure out how to create its layout. Okay, and so we have the opening shot on the moon. Then we have the next 2 panels are inside mission control, and then we're back to the moon. And so in order to make the page kind of give it a lot of life and a lot of breath, I thought, boy, you know, if I did the external shots on the moon, the first and fourth, did those without borders, lots of black, you know, it made it feel very isolated, very alone, very unconfined. And then the insets of the Mission Control set those really apart. So the scene shift between the moon, Mission Control, and back to the moon is utterly clear, and it still brings that vibrancy to the location of the moon, that it's expansive and it just is bleeding out into infinity.
Oh, it's a great page, absolutely great page. There's a lot of text boxes going around here, Tony. Is this a kind of a throwback to how comics used to be?
I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that one.
Nowadays, you don't get a lot.
Like it should be told.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess it beats driving to everybody's house and actually just sort of reading a script to them as they look at the pictures.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember, I think it was Frank Miller that I first noticed was doing thought balloons as captions instead of the balloons, you know. So I guess that, you know, the storytelling, even in the lettering, continues to evolve and change.
Tell me, I miss thought bubbles. What can I say? I'm old school. I like thought bubbles. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, but when the character who is actually bringing that dialogue is not featured, you can't have a thought bubble because it doesn't kind of make sense. You have to have some other sort of vehicle to carry that information.
Oh, damn you professionals spoiling all my fun. Son of a... I thought you were on my side, but never mind. Okay. We have some more art to look at. This is a different tone altogether. A lot lighter color-wise. Love the different camera angles on show. Who decides on camera angles? Is this something that comes from Tony, who kind of directs, or
it's often a mix. You know, I think sometimes in the script there are camera cues that are given, and so I try to follow those. But I do have a lot of room to utilize the camera angles, because there's actually a lot of storytelling rules that apply, visual storytelling rules, like making a film. If you've heard of the action axis, you have to define an action axis, and then your cameras are only allowed on one side of that action axis as you walk through the screen, or scene. So you have to make sure that you can see everything you need to see. The character orientation on the page remains consistent, and there's enough room for all the dialogue to go. And so with those parameters, I just experiment, try different angles to see what's the most dynamic, the most clear, to bring the emotion at play.
So I suppose in simple terms, Scott, sorry to interrupt, it's very much on this page, you've got the blonde-haired gentleman on the left and the dark-haired gentleman on the right on every panel.
Yeah,
that's your action axis to make sure.
Correct. That's what preserves that orientation. You can change them, but you have to show a crossing shot where you have to actually see some sort of overlap of the characters, and then they can switch. You just can't.
Some form of movement to get them from one particular.
Correct. Yeah.
When I first saw Scott's work back when he was working on Nightwing, I used to just drink in those pages. I mean, they were just so different than most of the stuff that I was looking at. I was looking at everything because I was in editorial at DC. But I would like stare at the clouds he put in the sky sometimes, you know, just like, why is that so captivating? And hearing him talk about how he approaches the work, you begin to understand that there really is all this structure and intention behind it, you know, even just simple things like clouds that used to just like, wow, you know, everything is so dynamic with what he does that, you know, even a quiet scene like this is going to pop.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it doesn't frustrate me, but I think I see a lot of it in modern comics where the background is just treated as a bonus, that if it kind of fits, it'll be included. If it doesn't, it'll just be some sort of design or shadow cut across or texture or whatever.
I heard a story about a certain creator. I'm not going to name names because that would be rude of me. I'll do it off camera. But I heard a complaint when the writer was breaking into the industry that the building exterior would have square windows, but then when you shot to the characters inside the building, the windows would be circular. And you're like, come on.
That's a bit inconsistent. Yeah, that's totally that's a whole other problem. But really, I think you have to consider the background as a character just as important as the lead characters who are speaking. And I take that approach into every scene. And I think, that's kind of what Tony was appreciating, that, when you walk through when you read this book, you're going to be dropped into a location, into a setting, and it'll be consistent all throughout. And I think that just adds a whole level of authenticity to each location, and that just drives, throughout the story.
Cool. Excellent. Tom, what's it like seeing all the culmination of your stories? You've got Tony's words, you've got Scott's pencils on there. It must be like a dream come true. Every day must be Christmas for you, is it?
Yeah, well, I feel like I'm living in a dream. I'm like in this cosmos.
Don't worry, it's fine.
No, you know what? Those guys were very just humble, just very professional. So we had so much work that I think that we got the pleasantries out of the way after like the first hour. And then we just said, okay, let's roll up the sleeves and let's get to business. And then let's also say that Tom and Joe, hey, if this doesn't work, who cares? No one heard of us. Fenom Comics will just fade away. No one will care. Well, Tony and Scott have reputations. They've got catalogs and they've got fans. And so for them to jump in this, it was going to succeed because they've got their fan base that they need to, make sure that they're putting a product out there. So I think that from day one, we were on, okay, this is how it's going to work. We need this to work. This doesn't make sense. Let's get this going. And I think people will see that, everyone's talking about the little intricacies of the pages. I think that's so neat because a lot of this stuff out today, it seems like they're just kind of, hey, we need it. It's, some of those old art forms about the, the inks, how they bring your eyes, the art, the pages, the writing, the bubbles and stuff. These are conversations people love to have. And I think it's almost one of those lost things because I love backgrounds. I love reading a book and seeing like a Catwoman in the background in the bushes that no one, my first 20 reads, I never saw her, but that last 20th I saw her. And so I think that's what Scott was saying about the backgrounds is I don't think anything was, there's not one panel that was skimped on. And then even the writing, there was never a throwaway scene. That there was never something that didn't go over 20 times. We're still editing right now with Tony. So I think that the people that really, really love stories and really love comics, the medium, are going to appreciate just the hard work and just the little tricks of the trade. Wisdom doesn't come cheap. And these guys literally are putting all the, knowledge that they've had into Star Writers. So we're lucky, we're fortunate, but just to meet them just as people, Tony and Scott and, Rob and all the guys, fantastic people. So,
as a reader, I think you could always tell when you picked up a comic, if it was a labor of love or if it was something that, somebody did for a paycheck, Oh,
and, don't get me started.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation this morning about a couple of books, one's due out in a couple of weeks that screams paycheck, but I'm not going in there at all. I'm not touching that one alive for you.
Yeah, and nobody sets out to make a bad comic
or
a movie
that's
or anything like that, but you just know when somebody's really got their heart in it.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I'm going to show another panel. I've taken this off your Kickstarter page, which we will have a look at in a little bit. So I'm not spoiling anything, but this kind of alludes to what you're talking about in backgrounds, I think. I mean, whoa, check it out. You've got the brickwork, you've got the framework behind there, the slats of the blinds going on. Oh, man. What an absolute piece of art that is. Well done.
Yeah, it's wonderfully creepy.
Yeah. That's the last image that everyone's going to get about this book. Like, well, it's a ghost book. No, it's not.
Yeah. And that's really it. I mean, it's really, the composition is just to really be centered, to not distract your eye from the main relationship of that entity and the young child that's sleeping. Framed by the window, the shadows on the wall cutting and creating a frame to focus your eye, to keep it there. And the other details that are included, they don't distract. There's nothing in there that would purposely pull your eye away from looking at that thing and thinking, oh, that's kind of creepy. This kid's sleeping, he's very vulnerable, and this entity is just looming behind him.
Looming is the right word. No Catwoman's on that one for you, Tom. Sorry. So I've looked somewhere else for that. It's interesting because the art that I've seen for the book, it goes from creepy to technical to bright to technical to creepy again. Tony, I can see it visually. I can see it, and so my eye recognizes that. How do you get to write that? How do you manage to kind of? What's the process for trying to write the different, not the different genres, but the different environments? Tough question. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of what I've written over the years has been, sci-fi stuff, and I don't know. I've just gotten used to it.
Well, let me
just cause. Where's the sky blue? Well, it just is. All right, great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of built into the content, right, Tony? I mean, when you jump into an alien environment, all of a sudden things are surreal, and so your storytelling approach becomes surreal, and so your voice becomes surreal, the narration becomes surreal, just the whole conceptualizations become surreal. When you come into a technical environment, it just, that's kind of the air you're breathing for that scene.
The language becomes more formal. It becomes more.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's almost like it gives you the flavor for how you now approach it, and that I think is the value of having really well-defined set pieces in different locations and different scene content. If you define that really sharply and distinctly and differently, that fact alone just creates that environment where, now things are different and we're going to go ahead. And now we've moved into this new environment. This is bright. This is happy. This is whatever. And so that's the flavor now of how you approach everything. And so it gets picked up in the writing, in the voice and the tone and tenor of the writing and the beats that he creates. And then I pick up on that in the artwork and to try to bring that to life visually.
Cool.
The real secret is having a partner like Scott, though.
I was going to say,
with a big brain who really thinks through everything, Yeah.
Well, I think that's what makes our collaboration so cool, is that we're all like that. I think we're all thinking this thing all the way through, and any change has a ramification from what we've done to what we're going to do. And I think we all have that awareness, and that's how you can tell it's not a paycheck kind of thing.
Yeah.
We've gone through this material. We know this material from start to end, and we're just implementing and changing and modifying and expanding this area and maybe contracting this area. So that makes it a lot of fun.
So I suppose here's a question then for all three of you, so you can all answer it. Like, we'll go Tom, Tony, Scott. When it comes to creating a story, whether it be the writing or whether it be the art, do you go set piece, how do I get there? Or do you write it in a linear style? Same with art. Do you think, oh, that's a cool set piece, that's a cool set piece, how do I get there? Tom, let's go with you.
Well, I guess from Joe and I's perspective, we've done it multiple ways, because some of the other titles, Something Fierce that's coming, we really ran from point A to point Z. I think with Hunter Ninja Bear, it was A to Z, but very loose, and we put a pretty tight synopsis for Chuck, and then Chuck really came in and tooled it up. Tony, I think it was more 30,000 foot view, just because we had pitched, a couple to him, but it was such an epic, grand concept. We didn't know if we could pull it off. So there's a lot of things that were almost taken away from the script, because then Scott would come in and say, hey, fun, drawing wise, I can't draw this. Like, you've got proportions here that in this setting will work, but in this setting, they don't work. And it's kind of hard to explain without telling a story, but
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but a lot of it doesn't jive with the comic medium. You just can't pull it off. So I think that with the writing, we were 30,000. Hey, Tony, get us here. We're starting here. We want to get there. But along the way, we kept taking a step back, because Scott kept saying, hey guys, slow down, slow the writing. I can't draw this, and it doesn't make sense. And so I think we then just started really working in tandem. So we just I talked to Tony, Tony would talk to Scott, Scott would talk to me, and we would just interweave. And then on the backside, we had, Rob inking that would always give us input. And then we had Joe and me always talking. And then we had, just, time to reflect. When we're on chapter 3, we went back to chapter 1 to make sure everything made sense. So I know I'm not answering the question. Tony and Scott can answer it more professionally, but from my perspective, Joe and I don't have a set weight.
Yeah.
But for this one, Tony really had the pie in the sky. This is what we think would be really cool,
Yeah.
And Tony put in the whole background story, especially with those opening scenes with command control and NASA and the moon landing. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the set pieces don't drive the story. The story drives the set pieces, and so you want to try to connect these scenes in a way that maximizes the drama as it goes, and control the beats and how they're growing and they're getting more significant. And so it's really the story that you need, and then you put it in the most exciting environment that you can get that job done, and then you bring that to life. Cool.
Tony, you agree with all that?
Yeah.
He had the easiest answer. Yeah, that's right. What he said.
Why not?
I think on Tony next time first.
Like the main stuff, the stuff that really makes that story work was there from the start, from the first thing that Tom and Joe wrote up. I could see it. It was all in there, and it's just been a continuous process of kind of expanding and realizing, how that can work on a more granular basis, but it was all there.
I bet that's the fun bit for you, though.
It hooked me, I think.
That's the fun part for you, the fact that you've got the kind of where you need to be, but how am I going to get there? That's the bit where you get to.
And it was something I connected to personally. I mean, going back to some of my earliest memories were watching the moon missions come back, on TV, on the news, watching them splash down and everything. It was. And honestly, the whole time I was growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut. That was, those were my heroes, but also just the family stuff and being a dad and understanding how you connect with your kids, and how that just becomes the center of your whole existence. And that's what's at the center of this story. It's a father and his 2 sons. They are different from everybody else. There's a big reason for that. And it winds up, going beyond anything that you might expect, beyond the end of life, beyond the end of the world, and across the whole universe. Cool. It's but it becomes cosmic, but it's still, it feels personal.
Cool. Excellent. We'll have a look at the Kickstarter page. He says, he's just cancelled it off there like a moron. It's not like I've done this before a million times. There we go. Where are we at? So stick it in. There we go. So you are currently, this is on British because I'm in the UK. So you are currently on $5,370 and the 10,000 goal. You have 149 backers. That's huge. Got to say that's a big number. Still 40 days to go. So how long was the Kickstarter?
Just 60. 60, because for 100 Ninja Bear, we start off slow. We ended up getting, I think, 59, 60,000. But we're not really putting any big ticket items. So these are $20 a pop. And even with 100 Ninja Bear, we had 1,000 backers. So, this is all really we are not trying to fund the book. We're trying to just promote it and sell it for face value. So these aren't inflated prices. These are just what you would get at the bookstore, but we just need backing to get the word out.
Excellent. Well,
but you get a lot for that $20, more than,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a very substantial story. Right. I don't know how many pages we wound up at, but
no, it's around I think 250 right now. It might change with the book being put together, but that's a lot of book. 8 chapters, and the 8th chapter issue, because there's 8 chapters combined, and the same artists that do the artwork obviously are doing the covers. So we have 8 issues sandwiched, and the last issue is really a double issue. So there's only 9 issues if you think about it, and it's really just volume 1. So it definitely is not a one and done. We're looking this to be an ongoing series.
Cool. Ebooks. Let me talk briefly about that. I noticed on here you've got a $10 tier for an ebook.
Yeah.
I saw a Twitter conversation going on this morning on my timeline someone kicking off because someone's Kickstarter doesn't have a digital format or an ebook. They've got to be one of the most important things, surely, for a Kickstarter, especially for international readers.
Yeah, it definitely helps on shipping. I think a lot of times, even with our first campaign, we sent out, I don't know, maybe 4 times. We had to send out a book 3 times just because of international mail. It didn't. It just got rejected. So that adds up really quick when you have to send out the same book to New Zealand 3 times. But the ebook's great. I just like I like reading paper. I like the actual trade paper book. So I think it's neat. I love it on the iPad. I think it looks great. I just personally am a book guy. So
I am with you on that one. I would much rather hold a comic book than like scroll through a comic book.
Yeah.
But what do I know? I'm in the cheap seats, you know.
No, but and then just even the quality, everything's very high production. The paper, the printing, the people involved. I mean, really, Star Writers is just a top-notch product.
Can I ask you a business-oriented question, please?
Yeah.
Tom? Over the last couple of days, it's been announced that certain comic companies are going to have to put up the prices or reduce the discount that they get, or they give retailers, in order to stock the quality of the books. Do you think that Kickstarter is probably going to be even more popular, or crowdfunding is going to be even more popular, where you can turn around and say, for your $10, you get wham, this is what you get, or your $20, as opposed to going down to the comic book shop and having to pay something like, on average, somewhere between $5 to $7 for 22 pages?
I really think the comic book stores are really at a disadvantage, or really having a hard time here, because shipping, because there's distributors that, funnel their books to them. And now the comic book store has to pick up the shipping. So there's the shipping cost. And then there's the, hey, let's take a chance on new books, because now they've got all these people that just are looking for certain titles every month, but they do want to, update their inventory. Well, Fenom's kind of tricky, because all of a sudden our first book was $30. This is $20. There's not too many comic book stores that feel comfortable buying 5 brand new books that no one heard of for $100 or whatever, and then trying to sell them. So I've talked to, I think really throughout this last 2 years, I think I've talked to 90% of the bookstores out there personally. I call just promoting Hunter Ninja Bear, and everyone says the same thing, is that really, I think DC and Marvel drive comics without a doubt, obviously. And if they're going strong, the comic books are going strong. And I think that everybody has just been movied out. I think that DC and Marvel really were put behind the 8 ball, because they're trying to come up with new products, and they're trying to please everybody. Now their fan base is huge, and now they're trying to placate to that. And I think the comic book stores are trying to find their place. So I don't think it's I don't think it has anything to do with comic book stores so much as it is with the products. Is DC and Marvel producing products that people want? And inflation, if you want to go business, everything costs more. So it's just the employees cost more. Their healthcare benefits, electricity at the stores. You've got the shipping. You've got the rent of the retail location. I mean, these are real. When people go in a bookstore, they think of the books, but these are businesses that now have to handle just the U.S. economy, and that's about the honest answer. It's really the economy. And you go to a sandwich stop, or you go to a haircut place or barber, they're experiencing the exact same issues that comic book stores are.
I like to have a haircut place.
Yeah, I know, haircut.
go place where eat. No wonder you need a writer help. That's all I'm saying.
No, but I do love ebooks, and I think that is the way for the younger, the younger reader. Everything's on their phone, but you do not get the art. You just don't get the art jumping at you.
Yeah,
like you do off of a page.
My wife would love it if I was into ebooks, because that means I'd give her 14 long boxes.
Yeah, more convenient. Yeah,
it's cool. Right, Tony, Kickstarter, do you think, and indie books? Scott, this industry's massive now. It's huge. You know, I must talk to more indie creators than I do anything else. Is Tom right? Is the mass public, are we all sick of superheroes a little bit, and we're looking for something else for our books, do you think?
Well, I'll just say I think Tom has the dynamic right. I think Marvel, DC, they drive the standard model of distribution and retail sales. I think Kickstarter is really great for independent creators who have fresh ideas that don't really fit into that model. But yet can competently put together a professional quality book. I mean, the technology to put them together is now within reach of many people, and I think it just opens up a whole new level of access to content that you just wouldn't have otherwise. And so, in that regard, I think it's pretty good. But if you want Batman, you know where to go. If you want Superman or X-Men, you know exactly where you're going to find those things.
And this is a trade-off, isn't it? You say you can work on a big 2 book, and you get instant character recognition. Yeah, I mean, how many times? I mean, I'm not going to pick on anyone in particular. Star Wars, however, there seems to be every time I look at a Marvel release pack, there must be like 14 different Star Wars books out there.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I love Star Wars, but do I need that many?
And even a new publisher that wants to break into that retail, distribution and retail market, they face not only that dynamic that Tom described, but they also find the many comic book stores now are kind of small, and they have very limited shelf space. And so, in order to make the revenue they need to make, they stock the shelves with the 14 Star Wars, with the 15 Batman, with the, all those titles just take up all the oxygen in that room, and there's very little space for anything else. And I think that's where Kickstarter just sort of kicks that door open, and like, hey, here we are, and come on in. And if you like this content, you like this idea, give us some support, man. We'll keep making it.
Cool. Talking of Kickstarter, sorry.
Yeah, but I think that the crowdfunding, Kickstarter, and Indiegogo have a long way to go, because we made our rounds. We were in Tulsa, we were in Salt Lake City, we were in. We kind of just made a little trek, just visiting some bookstores just this past week, and we were out in, I think, Omaha, and we were talking about, hey, just meet us on Kickstarter. And the young lady said, "What's Kickstarter?" And she works at the bookstore. So I thought that was a one and done, So then we were, I think, in Des Moines. We were coming down through the Midwest, and same thing. What's Kickstarter? So I think, so I think the beauty of Kickstarter and Indiegogo is, I think there's a lot more people that don't really know about them. So I think they're doing well now, but I think once it becomes maybe a term or a website that people know, like Google, then I think they're going to explode. Yeah. So I think we're at the infant stages of crowdfunding.
Interesting. If you're interested in Star Riders, there is the Kickstarter right at the bottom of there.
Thank you.
Yes, I know Kickstarter addresses are long. No, there's nothing I can do about it. So what you want to do is, if you can't be bothered to write that down, pause the video now. Not when I look like an idiot, thanks. And or alternative, just go to Kickstarter.com and type in Star Riders. And you know what? You'll find it. Simple as. I'll use a Google bar. You'll find and of course, if you want to check out all more stuff from Tony and Scott, there are the respective Twitter pages. Check them out. I'm sure Scott will be dropping art somewhere along the line on there. Not suggesting anything, but
I'll be putting together some Tom approved artwork to drop.
Excellent. We can't leave Tom out of the equation. So for Fenom Comics, go and check out the website there. It's that simple. I've put the comics link in there. Do that. That'll take you straight to the comics page. If you go to the home page, there's a plethora of information on there for you to enjoy. So everyone gets a little bit of love. How cool is that? Who'd have thought that'd be so nice? Tom, Tony, Scott, thank you so much for spending the time. We've overran a little bit, but you know what? I was enjoying myself so much, I just could not stop. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to talk to me about Star Riders and, of course, your previous work. It's been an absolute blast. I've had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.
And Tom, thank you for reaching out. Continue to do so, sir. You are more than welcome on this show.
Johnny, you've been great, and you've got a huge, fan base, and everyone's been very just appreciative because even with our first campaign, you've been great. So, Johnny, thanks for the support. Fenom couldn't survive without the support.
Shows like us. It's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. I totally appreciate it. One of the things I love about doing this is that I get to speak to people about their passion about comic books. Tony, you said it right at the start, man. It's about the passion. You can tell. Nobody watches this show to talk to me.
You do.
All right, there you go. We're all done. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows. You saw the advert for it earlier, the Old Timers Comic Book Show. And of course, if you like things Marvel, you have the No Prize Podcast. For the DC show, it's the Definitive Crusade. What more can I say? Tom, Tony, Scott, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rock and roll.
I've been your host, Johnny Machine Hughes, and as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.